Premier Fitness Systems and Master Instructor for DVRT, the Ultimate Sandbag. So this is a part of our 7 movements series that I'm doing, and today we're going to be talking about the squat. So the squat is definitely one of those movement patterns that you see us doing, us as humans, not only from when we're a little baby and moving into a toddler and eventually learning how to walk, but also as adults. This is involved in almost every sport that we play, some version or fashion of a squat. So it's a movement that we do often, and there's a lot of different ways we can squat. But today what we're going to do is talk about the 7 different ways that you can squat with your Ultimate Sandbag, okay? So I'm going to be demonstrating a lot of this stuff probably with our power bag that can be filled upwards of 35 pounds, and probably some with the force bag, which I really like at 45. And again, depending on the holding position or which handles you're using, depends on which bag you're going to grab. So let's go ahead and start with what we might consider to be our beginner level squat variations. One of the things in order to help people understand how to recruit a little bit better core stabilization, so what's called proximal stabilization, and incorporate the upper T-spine, the thoracic spine, is to perform a squat press out. And so normally I would recommend you grab your core bag, so something around 10 to 15 pounds. The further away the bag gets in this press out position, the more of a challenge it's going to create, not only for the integrity of the shoulder girdle, but also for the core. And the reason why we like this particular one is it actually creates a counterbalance to increase the range of motion or the depth in your squat. So let me show you what that looks like. I'm going to use a power bag, like I said, and I want to be able to grab the material of the bag itself. So I want to get standing directly over the bag, my center of mass directly over the bag. I am going to grab the outside material and create a good, strong grip on the bag. Okay, so grip and rip. So I'm going to start with it right here at the sternum, in between my sternum and my belly button. So if you look at me from the side, my elbow's still bent to about 90 degrees. I don't have my wrist or fist up high here by the collarbones, and I don't have my wrist or fist down low. So I'm keeping my elbow at a good 90-degree angle, okay? And my feet are about hip distance apart. So as I descend, I'm going to press the bag away, and as I come back, I can pull the bag to my body. So again, this is about 25 pounds I have in my power bag with Ultimate Sandbag. Little heavy for me, but I can still work on a good press out and pull it back in, okay? You can also work on just keeping that press out position and continuing to perform your reps, holding your arms extended, okay? So again, that's gonna help you with range of motion and depth at a lighter load. That's why we typically will be using the smaller bag. Now, from there, we can progress to what we start teaching you guys in the workshop, in the format. Sometimes the easiest way to start working the Ultimate Sandbag for your squat is to actually keep the weight close in proximity to the axial skeleton. Okay, so what do I mean by that? This is going to be the bear hug position. So what I'm going to do is bring this up again to the center of me, in between my belly button and my sternum. And I'm going to wrap my arms, one on top, and grab the sides of the bag and try to rip the bag from left to right, hence creating this nice hugging position. So I'm going to keep the bag in close to my body, and again, I can descend down into my squat position and drive back out. So press my feet through the floor. Grip, rip, left to right, hug it in nice and tight, and push away from the ground again. So usually with the bear hug, it's a very accessible position for almost anybody to do. You're gonna probably want to practice that with a little bit more than just your power bag. So again, if you have a force bag or a strength bag at home, something in the form of 40 pounds or more will probably give you the right kind of stimulus and will still help you create a good range of motion, and a good depth to squat to, okay? So we've got all these amazing handles on the Ultimate Sandbag. So one that we could potentially use is the suitcase handle, okay? So if I hold the bag to my side, just like you would your suitcase if you're going to the airport, you can still get a squat effect with your suitcase handle, okay? Now again, that one, I don't know if I recommend nor would I use it too very often. I think for a lot of individuals, they can probably get a little bit lower in their squat. The bag might run into the floor. That might produce a problem. But again, that's really not much different that I could potentially do with a dumbbell, even a kettlebell, or another tool I might find in the gym. So we're gonna keep sticking to the unique holding positions that we have or can create with the Ultimate Sandbag. So again, the suitcase one is an option, especially if I'm looking to create what's called an asymmetrical load. So if I have the bag on one side of my body, now I have to have all this frontal plane stability and make sure I can create tension not only through that left side, but also through the right, so that I don't start to look all wonky as I try to go into a squat. So remember, I don't want the bag to control me. I want to be able to control the implement itself and use my stabilizers of my body. So we also, speaking of offset loads, we have what's called the shouldered position. Definitely one of my favorites, although they're all really good. And I'll show you that with the force bag. Like I said, I have this loaded to about 45 pounds of sand. So this is going to go up onto the shoulder. And again, we want to talk about safety when getting there. We want to avoid any potentiality for an issue. So, like I did before when I was getting ready to grab the bag by the sides to perform my press out, I want to stand with my center of mass, so that's here, that's my pelvis, center of gravity, directly over the bag. This is going to set me up to hinge back into my hips, find either side of the material or the bag. One hand down below, one hand up top is also a great way. Want to try to avoid using the handles because we're not going to be using the handles when we have it in the shoulder position. So we get my hands underneath the bag. I can kind of pull my butt down, chest up, drive through my feet, and then it ends up right here into that shoulder loaded position, okay? So again, I can perform my squat with this offset asymmetrical load. So it's going to give me more stability or ask more stabilization through my side core, hence this frontal plane, and is going to produce an offset style stabilization, okay? And again, there's a lot of different variations now I can create. I can go into my staggered stance, keep it in that shoulder position, do my squats from here. Of course, I can go into my lunges and a whole bunch of other things, but again, we're only talking about the squat. Where does that come into play then? Perhaps why would I want to choose this one? If you're doing a great assessment on your client, and if you notice that as they go into their squat, they might start to hip shift or sway, and it doesn't look as though it's even, they may need an offset or asymmetrical load. Those of you who are familiar with kettlebells, remember you can always get the kettlebell into a single arm, one arm rack position, and still be able to squat with only having weight on, in this case, the left side of your body. So it creates this kind of, again, this ability to resist movement in the frontal plane and be able to stabilize and recruit that proximal stabilization through the core. So what is the other ones we've got? How about the front hold, front load? I'm sure this is probably the most common one you see being done with all of our Ultimate Sandbags. It's usually just the most versatile position to be doing a lot of other lower body exercises. So to get it up into that front loaded position, what we want to do is grab our Ultimate Sandbag by the neutral grip handles, okay? Now we want those neutral grip handles because I want to be able to once again create a nice grip, rip from left to right. That's going to start to send that energy up the kinetic chain through the shoulder and towards the back so that I can actually recruit my back muscles. So this isn't a video on a tutorial on how to get this into the position, so I'm simply going to show you what it looks like to get that front-loaded squat. Okay, so it's in the crooks of my elbows. I'm holding it up in my upper body with my arms, okay? And then what I'm going to do, again, here, now I'm ready to descend down into my squat and push out of that bottom position, okay? Try not to let your arms fall down to the side of your body. Try to keep your elbows relatively pointing out and away as if you had laser beams coming out of your elbows. If you do that, if you keep those elbows up and you create that shelf, you won't start to collapse through your spine as you go into your squat. From that side view, you want that nice upright spine as you go down into your squat position. You don't want to see a folding or a collapsing or a rounding of the back. So keep those elbows up and forward and keep the integrity of that shelf. The fist load is very similar to the front loaded position, okay? Just requires more technique, which just means more practice, getting a good power clean and getting it into the fist loaded position. Again, this is up there probably with my favorite position to get the ultimate sandbag into, because it opens up so many more doors for other options and what to do with the bag, from pressing to pulling and all that good stuff. So, what do I mean by fist load? We're still gonna stick with the same handles. It's gonna be those neutral grip handles, and we're still gonna work on performing a power clean to get it up on top of the fists, okay? So, it's gonna look like this. I'm gonna have the bag resting right on top of my fist, right? So across the top of my arms. So I'll show you, start from that hang clean, underneath it, okay? So if I turn to the side, again, what I'm looking for here when I perform this squat is I want to be able to keep the integrity of that shelf as it's loaded on top of my fist. So double check yourself. If you can move your arms a little bit away from your body and the bag doesn't fall, that tells me that you have it directly onto the fist. There I am, I'm keeping the elbows coming up and forward, shooting out in front of me, and not letting them fall down to the sides of my body, because then eventually that bag might actually roll off the pinky side. So I have to keep myself punching to the ceiling, and the more I think about punching up, punching up, punching up as I descend, the better I'll be able to keep that shelf intact. And again, you'll really start to feel your core working to stabilize your spine, and then your upper back muscles to help stabilize the shoulders. Last but not least, probably the most advanced reason being is to do an overhead squat means you need to have good overhead mobility. That means the integrity of that joint, and you need to have the capacity to be there in the first place. What we're not looking for, we don't want to get a lot of excessive bending in the spine. I'm not looking to create extension as a method to do an overhead-based squat, lunge, or whatever I'm gonna do. So first I need to just test to make sure that I have good overhead mobility. So for the most part, we're looking to try to get the wrist, elbow, and shoulder almost directly in line with the side of the face, right? So if I reach up, raise my hand like I have a question, I should be able to get here without pain, discomfort, or any sort of issues. So in this case, I know that I do. I have a good overhead capacity. So again, what are we gonna do to get that into the overhead position? We need to use the snatch grip handles. So for that, these are the two that are right in line with each other, and we're just gonna simply perform a snatch to get it into that position. So again, this video isn't for tutorials on how to snatch, but I will show you how it looks like once you get it into the snatch position and you're ready to squat. Okay, so once I have it overhead, keep that strong grip on the handles. Feet are still hip distance apart, and I'm still trying to maintain a relatively vertical spine as I descend down into my squat. I want to really feel like, once again, you're punching towards the ceiling, reaching your arms towards the sky, and then pushing through the feet to drive out of that bottom position. So there you have it. There are all the 7 different ways you can squat with some of the different ultimate sandbags. The possibilities really are like rather endless. And then stay tuned as we go through another movement pattern, the hinge.